Well, let's bring in Yuriy Sak. He's an advisor to Ukraine's Minister of Defense. He joins me now from Washington, D.C. Mr. Sak, thank you so much for being with us here on France 24, this most important day. Well, we're now a year into this conflict. 1 year ago, did Ukraine think it would still be here fighting?
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me. Of course, we knew that no matter what comes our way, we will fight for our freedom because we have a history of centuries of being committed to our liberty, to our land, to our motherland. So there was no doubt that we will put up a fight, that we will be resilient, and the whole world has seen that this is exactly what happened.
The world is an important aspect there, isn't it? Did you think that Ukraine's allied response would be as strong as it has been?
We, as a country, we have a long history which goes back centuries, actually, of Russia trying to destroy us. Russia trying to deny the existence of the Ukrainian people, Ukrainian language, Ukrainian culture. And right now, this is exactly what they're doing. This is why so often we call this a genocidal war. Now, we knew that when our allies will see for themselves the true colors of this terrorist state, there will be no doubt in their minds that they must stand with Ukraine, because this is a black and white issue. This is a fight not just for the territories in Ukraine. This is not just a fight for some cities. This is a global fight against evil. Russia is not planning to stop in Ukraine if it is allowed. The leader of Kremlin was very straightforward and open about this. So we knew that our allies will soon see the magnitude of the threat and their response will be united, and this is exactly what happened. 12 months into this aggressive war, our allies stand with us, and with their hope and their support, we will defeat the enemy on the battlefield and we will restore peace, stability, and freedom in Europe.
Well, Ukraine has received a significant amount of military aid from its allies. Is Ukraine worried that the West and its allies might suffer from war fatigue and eventually interest and the desire to keep this aid coming will gradually tail off?
We were worried about this a little bit last summer, but on a daily basis today, we see world leaders making direct statements of support, of continued unwavering support for our country, and they will stand with us until victory. Because this is not the time to be fatigued or tired. This is a time to stand up for defense of freedom. And I don't want to sound pompous, but everybody understands what's at stake. So we are confident that, despite the fact that this war has already been lasting for 12 months, we don't want this war to become a protracted war. We don't want this to be a frozen war. This is why we insist on the delivery of the assistance to Ukraine, and our allies will stand with us. I don't think the fatigue will be an issue.
There is a risk, though, that this war does become more prolonged. If that happens, the US has been such a supporter of Ukraine in this conflict. But next year, there is a US presidential election. There could potentially be a change in government in Washington. How is Ukraine feeling about that?
If you will allow me, I would like to answer that question by a very simple personal experience. So I am right now in Washington, D.C., and wherever I go, I meet different people from different walks of life and from different political likings and inclinations. And the support for Ukraine is across the board very united and very determined. So I don't want to speculate on what will come, in a year and a half time. But I am confident from just meeting people here in the US, ordinary people, politicians, media, there is no doubt that this is a war in which we, as Ukraine, as a country, we are not alone.
Zelensky says that Ukraine is planning a new offensive. That's also something that US officials and others have alluded to in recent weeks. What can you tell us about that upcoming offensive?
Well, we've been saying from day one of this large-scale invasion that our objective remains the complete deoccupation of Ukrainian lands and liberation of our cities and protection of our people. So, of course, this can only happen if we successfully conduct counteroffensive, the way we did in Kharkiv, the way we've liberated Kherson. And, this is what's going to happen with the rest of the temporarily occupied territories. We will push the enemy out and we will bring them to account through an international war crimes tribunal. Now, of course, the details of the forthcoming counteroffensive are not revealed for reasons of military security, but we are preparing for our counteroffensive, and we just need to make sure that we are ready for it and it's done quickly and with minimum losses on our side.
Looking at a peace deal, China has put one forward, which Zelensky partially agreed. He agreed with parts of it. What does the end of this war look like for Ukraine? You said that you want to push the Russians out. Is it completely off the table that Russia will take control of any part of the eastern part of Ukraine or Crimea, for example? Is that completely off the table for Ukraine?
It is completely off the table. Territorial concessions are completely off the table. This is our sovereign right to reinstate our territorial integrity within the internationally recognized borders. And that means, of course, that Crimea is part of Ukraine. And our allies understand this very well, and they support us in our vision of what victory means for us and for the world. Because, without or should any concessions be made, this will be allowing a tyrant to go unpunished. This will set a bad and wrong precedent for the international community. So in addition to our interest in protecting our country, we are also concerned about the future of the international rule-based order. And it requires that the aggressor is punished, that the territorial sovereignty of our country is reestablished, and that the reparations are made to us.
Yuriy Sak, an advisor to Ukraine's Minister of Defense. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Thank you for speaking to us on France 24.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me.